Black and White Spaces promotes unity, understanding, and collective sharing for marginalized Black intersections that are rarely, if ever, told. We're dedicated to expanding the Black narrative through education, elevation, liberation, and celebration for all Black people. Hey y'all, it's Jakaya, and thank you so much for listening to the Black and White Spaces podcast. Welcome back to my spaces. It's your host, Jakaya. Today I have a very special guest. I have InnerGy in the building. InnerGy is an activist, writer, performing artist. She's been performing for well over 5 years, but professionally for 5 years. She's a Scorpio, born and raised in St. Louis, and she is the mother of 2. Also, happy belated Mother's Day to you and all the mamas out there. Thank you for being here today.
No, thank you for having me. Thank you so much for having your amazing platform and just allowing me to be one of the many, many voices that you feature.
Thank you. And of course, absolutely. I'm so glad to be in your presence. We've been chit-chatting and now everybody else is about to know what I know, and I'm so excited.
That's right.
So I'm going to get it started. We'll be discussing in this episode you being Black and in creative arts, motherhood, and activism, and how all of those things tie into your identity. So I wanted to start off with, what are your identity markers?
So I identify as she, her, hers.
How do all of the spaces that you inhabit as a creative, as a mother, as someone within the Black community, how do all of those things, and even like where you are geographically, like in St. Louis, how do all of those things form who you are as a Black mother?
You want the long version or the short version? I know, right? Those are a lot of paths that intersect, obviously. As a St. Louis native, I guess it was hard for me to see just how rough the city is that I live in while I live here. But it definitely took me to travel outside St. Louis and to tap into a more national and global network to really start to get an idea of how people see St. Louis. Like, I would have kind of compared it to any city before, but once I labeled myself as a writer, I was able to kind of take myself out of being a native and being more, able to see it from the outside looking in, and wow. So that alone definitely kind of gives you an idea of what all opportunities are available for someone like me. And fortunately enough for me, I actually went to gifted schools my whole life and have been in arts and drama my whole life. And so, but if I'm honest with you, I really didn't settle on this career path. I really hadn't even realized that it chose me then, when I was in high school, when I was in middle school. It took me to my mid-20s to make a final decision that I wanted to do something different, that I wanted to see something different, that I wanted to be something different. And that was all really sparked with my activism. So seeing St. Louis from another person's perspective really allowed me to see all the problems that pervaded the city and how, our communities were shaped, how the policies and the politics of the city allow people who look like me to live on the fringes, to live in some of the worst conditions, and to have little to no chance to really make it outside of that, to do something different. I think is really it really was a challenge to think outside of the box. I think that's really what really made it hard, because you can really only see yourself in the people that you see. And when you see, and I mean, we can imagine all the kinds of things that we see in the Black community, but when that's all you see, then that's kind of all you aspire to be. And I mean, I had always been different, so I knew I didn't quite fit in there. But then I realized I didn't quite fit in anywhere, and and then I felt brave enough. I finally got brave enough to create my own lane and to be happy with it. And so, wow, like the statistics of my city and the likelihood that I was going to end up being a teenage mom. I hadn't even realized it until I became a teenage mom. And that also kind of changes your self perception, because you can be a parent and not be an adult. And just the harsh realities of having to be a mother when you don't even know how to balance a checkbook. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, it's just so many things that you have to juggle at once. So my artistry did really take a back. I won't say that it took a back burner, but I was so excited about being a mother, about being a mom, about raising a child, that I channeled my creative energies into what that looked like. And so that allowed me to explore all kinds of possibilities, from homeschooling to growing my own food to, just really being into health and wellness, because I wanted to give my child the best that they could possibly have. And I grew up on junk. I grew up on Kool-Aid and ramen noodles, and I grew up on fried chicken and just quote unquote soul food. So I realized that it was killing us as a community. That it was a lot of things that we had in our daily lives that were extremely self-destructive, and I wanted to give my children a chance that I didn't have because of the what they call it, generational trauma. Just passed down, just keep perpetuating the cycle and allowing it to continue and to continue, because that's what you were taught. So you can't give someone what you didn't have, what you didn't receive. And so it just is. It's been an amazing, oh my gosh, self-defining journey. I'm definitely not done with those chapters of my life. Just as far as it's gone, it's just in the beginning. And I'm if anything, it's just giving me a renewed sense of self and allowed me to really embrace what it is to be me, to be energy, and to be just that unique individual, but a part of a collective. Like, I do definitely, Nasha, I'm a part of a collective group of amazing people doing amazing things. So I don't know the answer to the question, but I hope it.
But I think that we don't sit down a lot and just think about like all the things that have occurred, all the decisions that have been made, like our environment, all of those things collectively that have put us in this exact moment of who we are. And that's awesome. Like, that's so beautiful.
The good and the bad.
Yeah.
The good and the bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. And there's this belief, of course, here in St. Louis, where it's like, if you can make it in St. Louis, you can make it anywhere. Yeah. But like, I used to just hear it and kind of brush it off. But now, like, I really embrace that, because of how this just the history of the city, the mentality of the people that live here, the lack of opportunity, the lack of growth, the lack of cohesiveness, the lack of community. It is just, and the trauma is so much trauma. It's so much healing that needs to be done in a city like this. If St. Louis is like this, I can only imagine what it looks like nationwide. I can only imagine what it looks like globally. And so it's just, again, like, it is definitely eye-opening, and it just allows you to really see yourself, just for who you are, with all those things combined.
Yeah. What do you think is the most challenging thing as a Black mother?
Mm. As a creative and a Black mother, the most challenging, whew, I just got to pick one, right?
Y'all,
No, I don't pick one. If I did, I could do like a top. I could do a top three. Because I'm a single parent. So um, parent, you this is not supposed to be a single thing. You know what I'm saying? Like when you really start to look at it and break it down, it took two to make a child, so it takes two, and then more, of course, to raise one. And so that within itself is a huge challenge because when you don't have that support system that really allows you that flexibility, it can definitely frustrate you. It can definitely frustrate you. Luckily for me, I have two amazingly gifted and talented children, 13 and 11, and they are not only my biggest supporters, but they also pour into me so much. They allow me to do so many different things. And I mean, when I say allow, sometimes as parents, we have children that can be difficult and needy and can make us decide to put whatever we're trying to do to the side just to solely focus on raising and rearing our children. But my children have understood that, as I said before, you can be a parent and not be an adult, and that I'm very much still going through the process of becoming an adult, and that there's a lot of personal growth that comes along with that, and that I'm going to make mistakes, and that I'm going to be wrong, and that I'm going to go through things as a woman. I'm going to go through things as an artist. I'm going to go through things as, just a person alive, living with all this stuff that's happening, on top of that, that has nothing to do with being a creative or being an artist or being a mom, but just life. Um, yeah, so it's pivotal to have that kind of support system. And when you live in a city like mine, and you are unique and you do have a voice and you do recognize your power and you're not going to waste your time, the pickings can be slim, girl. The pickings can be slim. So yeah, that's definitely number one challenge. Number two, resources, because if you don't have that stability to starting off, and you don't have the support network starting off, finding resources can be very, very difficult, especially if you want to be an artist full time. Especially if your calling keeps you out of mundane spaces, corporate spaces where you just feel like a plant with no sun, and you just wither up and die and become depressed. And it's a lot of really empathic creatives out here that channel that energy, and they need it in order to really produce these captivating moments where you really can connect with their art. And it is and it just is hard to make it come to life when you don't have the resources. I won't say that there aren't organizations here in St. Louis that are very focused on supporting creatives here in St. Louis, but they're very diverse, almost too diverse. And so when you're coming from a background where you may not have a classical education, where you may not be experienced with writing for grants, you may not have experience with maybe even writing about yourself, or who knows, that can present a challenge when you want to get an award, or you want to be a resident, you want to get a residency. You're going to get looked over because that takes skill, to articulate your vision. That takes skill. And some of us, we have amazing talent. But that talent is hardly ever supported because of just that disconnect that comes along with having the literacy, the understanding, the ability to communicate your needs, and to be able to connect with the person who wants to give you the resources. Like, like it just can be so difficult. So that definitely is number two. And number three, the city itself. St. Louis gets a bad rep because there are people here that really don't know how to work cohesively. And then when you see what that looks like, it's funny situations like, okay, let's say Tay Tay has no talent whatsoever, but Tay Tay is brave and he will get out there and he will get in front of a crowd and do whatever, and his family loves it. So it doesn't matter that he don't have not an ounce of talent. All of his family shows up every time he does something. Okay, whether it's fart, sneeze, cough, they there. All right, they got T-shirts of it. They posting it. You know, they really going crazy, right? But then you have you have Joe, who is extremely talented. I mean, he can close his eyes and draw a first rate fine art picture. Okay, he's amazing, but he was a foster kid, so he doesn't even know who his family is. His foster parents, when he turned 18, just put him out, so he's virtually homeless. You know, and not only is he homeless, but he might be a high level autistic. So now it's hard for him to find a job. You know what I mean? So here you have amazing talent that should be supported. You know, where he can really get on his feet and get stable and make something of his art. But he doesn't have the people behind him to put him on that level where people can see him. Meanwhile, you know, Tay Tay's over here going viral because it's hilarious to watch him with his no talent get all this support. Meanwhile, you know, Joe over here with amazing talent is going to shrivel up and die because he doesn't have numbers. He doesn't have people behind him. So St. Louis kind of has that thing. And so if you're not family, if you're not my people, I'm not supporting you, is kind of the mentality here. And so how you become family, how you become people, again, has a lot to do with personality. So if you don't have personality, you know, it's so tough. Like, those are my main three, like that support, those resources. And we're talking about the in-home support, the close network support, but that loose network support is definitely extremely important as an artist and as a creative to make it out here. And St. Louis, it's just a little fragmented when it comes to the mentality and how we support each other. And some of us have